Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is January 12th of 2022. Very excited to have you here on the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse. We do have a very exciting guest, but before we get into that, I'd just like to talk about a few things that's happened recently here. So I'm very, very excited about the fact that this, I don't want to say it's a curse, but the fact that Georgia's sports programs, we've been doing okay. We have been doing okay. Shout out to UGA and their recent national title against the juggernaut Alabama. Very, very excited to have been able to bring this home to Georgia. And I say it because, first Atlanta did it. Okay. First the Braves did it. And, I don't want to say it was a fluke, but some people might say that. But the fact is that we won. And now we have UGA here as the national champions of the NCAA football. And I'm feeling pretty good, At this point, I've been in Georgia probably the majority of my life. And, I didn't go to UGA. I'm a proud Georgia State Panther. Shout out to the president, brother Brian Blake. Hey, what's up, man? I think we're going to go to a football game next season. But it does feel good to be from Georgia and to have this opportunity to, win. So shout out to all my friends that went to UGA. Shout out to all the players, the staff. It's a lot that goes into coaching at that level. So I just want to say shout out to everybody that played a part. It's very exciting times. And for today, we do have a very esteemed guest who has just joined the stage. It is right at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So without further ado, Andrew, how you doing today, brother?
How we doing?
Oh, we're great, man. You sound amazing. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me good? Everything?
Oh yeah, everything is smooth. What about me? Can you hear me?
I hear you good.
All right, man. Look, it's been a long time coming. I'm very, very excited to have you here on stage, sir. And I just want to say up front, thank you so much for your time, brother.
You don't have to thank me. I'm happy to be here.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, yes, sir. So, look, let's just go ahead and get this thing started. And for those people that don't know you, can you please give a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. My name is Andrew Silver. I'm 31 years old. I'll be 32 in 3 weeks. And I'm coming up on having spent half my life moving freight. So I was fortunate to have essentially grown up in the industry. Both of my parents, well, I guess my father and my stepmother both worked in the industry. If you have an understanding of freight brokerage, the first true North American freight brokerage was a company called American Backhaulers. It was founded by a gentleman named Paul Loeb, who, for the freight brokers of the world, he's kind of known as like the godfather of freight. And he started this company right as the industry was deregulated in 1980. And early 80s is when they started the company. Maybe it was 84. And from that company, there have been all these other freight brokerages that have sprung out of that. But my father went and started working for him after college in the early 80s. And, they built up this kind of first backhaul-oriented freight brokerage. And it was acquired by C.H. Robinson in 1999. And now C.H. Robinson's kind of Chicago office, which is their hub. That's a lot of people who at one point worked at that company, American Backhaulers. So that's kind of how my family got into the business. My father then, after Backhaulers was acquired by Robinson, after a couple of years, my dad wanted to start his own business. So he started a company called Coyote Logistics in 2006, which is now one of the largest freight brokers in America, owned by UPS. I was 16 years old at the time. And frankly, I was not a great kid. I didn't like school very much. I didn't pay attention very much in class. I got in trouble. And my pops just put me to work and was like, listen, if you're not going to do well in school, at a minimum, you're going to be a hard worker. And I started brokering freight when I was 16. Never really looked back. Throughout college, I went to University of Michigan and had an office there and worked for 3 of the years I was there. Just because I kind of was in love with the industry. I had some really strong relationships with truck drivers that, even to this day, 15 years later, I still talk to. Spent 10 years working there, and then eventually kind of felt like I needed to go build a business for myself. And me and a couple buddies got MoLo started, and kind of now here we are. So I hope that's a helpful background for you.
Oh, definitely. You touched on a few things that I was going to ask about, but I'm very happy that you are able to bring it full circle for us. So what would you say your earliest memory, your first conscious memory of the freight industry was? I know your parents, were in it very early, but what was your first conscious memory of, oh yeah, this is freight. This is happening.
Yeah. So I don't remember the early days of when I wasn't working, but I remember the first load I ever booked. So again, I was 16. It was December 26th. So I guess my pops basically had me come to work the day after Christmas. I sat down and made some phone calls. I listened to a gentleman named Tim King, who's a savvy kind of vet of the industry, and listened to him sell a couple loads. And then I sold a few loads myself. Well, I sold one load. I made a bunch of calls. I failed. And then I finally got to pick up a load for me.
I think it's interesting, these days I think it's changed just a bit where, there are a lot of these independent dispatch companies. I see that they're able to put their kids to work, get them that exposure, put them through those reps. But, I think that you're probably one of the first teenagers to be booking freight, as a freight broker back in the day. So that's pretty awesome, man.
Thanks.
Yes,
it was better than getting in trouble, which is what I would have been doing if I wasn't working. I think the sooner you can get, I don't have any kids. I'm not married, but I'm very lucky to have parents who wanted me to work, and everybody should work. I don't know. I'm not someone who thinks that you get much by having things given to you. And I've been very fortunate my whole life. I was born on third base, as the saying goes, because my family had done well. But I'm not someone who thinks you should take advantage of that. I think whatever opportunities you have, you got to make the most of, and you got to work for it. And just nothing feels good if you didn't work for it. And that's just kind of my mentality. And I think if you have kids, there's nothing better than seeing them succeed and do that work on their own and go earn whatever it is that they have in their lives.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And, you're not married, you don't have any kids, but I do know you're an uncle. And, I've been an uncle for the majority of my life now. So shout out to us, brother. Shout out to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, so when Coyote was being, run, it was started in 2006. It was eventually sold in 2015. Did you ever feel like it was a family business, though? Like, did it ever give you that feel?
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that we did really well at Coyote was build a phenomenal culture, and it felt like a family. I mean, our people, we took care of one another for a very long time. I think something about when you build a business, if you want to build a family type atmosphere, and there's a lot of conversation now around the word family and whether or not it's a term you should use in business, right? And the thought behind it is you would never fire your family. Therefore, you shouldn't use the word family. You should use the word community. And I struggle with this because, for one, MoLo, one of our values is family. And I feel like we do treat each other like a family. But as I've kind of focused on this and try to understand it more, I think community is the right word. Because what a community is a group of people who align on their values and come together to live their lives with said values. And if someone is not going to live up to those values, you kind of excommunicate them, or they're not a part of your group anymore, so to speak, whether it's a friendship or whatever. With a family, it's a little harder to do that. Not to say that people don't stop talking to family members, but it's just not so simple as just firing someone in your family. But my point here is this. One of the things I think we did really well at Coyote, and one of the things I think we do really well at MoLo, and I think any of you who are starting businesses should think about this, make sure that whatever it is you commit to as your values and who you want to be, that you actually live up to that and that you actually execute that, whether you're the owner or just a member of the team, a leader, a manager, an individual contributor. It doesn't matter. If you want to build a good community, if you want to build a strong culture, everybody's got to be rowing in the same direction. Everybody's got to be bought into what the mission is. It's important that you have a critical message, a vision, an idea of what you want to create. And then it's important that the actions you ask of your people lead to that vision coming to fruition. So, for example, I'll talk about MoLo for a second here. I've asked a lot of our people. They've worked harder than anyone I've ever seen in my entire life. And they do it day in and day out, and they do it phenomenally well. They couldn't make me more proud to be who I am and be a part of this business. Now, what I've asked of them is I ask that they show up every day. I ask that they do better than our competitors. I ask that they show up when our competitors won't. I ask that they treat our customers with respect, that they answer quickly and at all hours. I mean, I ask them to do a lot. But what I've told them is that if they do these things, our customers will appreciate it. Our customers will give us more business. We'll grow with those customers. And if we grow with those customers, what that will do is create more opportunity for all of these people. And what I'm saying is, if you're going to ask a lot of your people, you better make sure that what you're asking them to do results in what you're telling them it will result in. And that's what I've said to them from day one. I said, if you do these things, I promise you, you will see growth in our business. And if you see growth in our business, you'll see growth for yourself as an individual. You'll see more people get promoted, yourself included. You'll see more teams created, more divisions created, all these different layers that are really opportunities. So back to kind of your comment about family and did I feel like it was a family? Yes, it did. And even more so at MoLo, I feel like we're a family. But I think the only reason that is because our people know that we're not lying to them. Our people know that we don't have malintent. Our people know that when we say we got to do something, it's because we truly believe it's the right thing to do. And if we all do it, we all will benefit as a result of it.
Oh, that is beautiful to hear, brother. That is beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing that, because I can hear the sincerity in your voice. That's things that you can't just teach. You feel that from the inside, and you're actually telling people you're showing them by your actual example. So that's amazing. And when it comes down to it, you did speak to that family / community feel. And that gets me to, how you got to MoLo in the first place. You're at University of Michigan, and how did you meet your partner? How did you meet Matt?
Oh, so we grew up in the same town, and we didn't know each other well in high school, but we knew of each other. He's this phenomenal basketball player, like lights out shooter. He ends up going to Michigan to play basketball, and that team he was on, he was the sixth man on the team. They ended up going to the national championship. Meanwhile, I was like putzing around playing rec league ball, getting my butt kicked. It was not the basketball that brought us together, but ultimately, we'd gone to the same school, and then a few years later, actually, I was working at Coyote. He was working at IBM selling supply chain services. So his job was to work with companies like Target to look at their supply chain overall and help them understand how they could be more efficient. He didn't know anything about freight. It wasn't about moving trucks. It was just about the overall supply chain. I was saying, okay, if you're selling asparagus at all your stores, and your West Coast stores are selling 150% more asparagus than your Midwest stores, why is that? And he would help them try to understand those problems. But what he was realizing, this was 2015, 2016 is when he and I started talking. He's like, I'm trying to help these customers, these shippers, these Target type companies with these large scale supply chain problems. And they all just keep telling me they have no reliable trucking companies to work with. And I was like, yeah, welcome to freight. And so he and I started talking, and then, it just came to be over time that I said, I want to get out of what I'm doing. I've always had this kind of insecurity around being the son of a CEO and growing up in a family type business. You always feel like no matter how hard you work, you'll never truly be respected for the work you do. You'll just be looked at as, hey, you're the CEO's son. So for me, I knew I had to get out of that business and go do something for myself. And for him, he felt like he was one of 100,000 people at IBM, and that what the work he was doing didn't mean anything. So it just kind of naturally came together in the sense that we said, listen, let's put ourselves out there and see what happens if we just go all in. And here we are kind of 4.5 years later, and we've built this kind of business with a lot of really awesome people who do a really good job for us.
Yes, sir. And here's the funny thing, I started following you on Instagram, and I was like, oh man, they look like they doing a lot in the freight game. And I used to see this guy that was in your post. I was like, who is that guy? You know what I mean? And then I looked into him. I was like, oh, he's sixth man of the year. He plays basketball. You know what I mean? So no, I was very impressed. But it makes sense. Your ability to grow up in freight, and his probably work ethic, is on a championship level. Putting those two things together, it probably was a great synergy. So, I can see why there's success there.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. I mean, if you were to ask me one person as to the reason MoLo is as successful as it is, it undoubtedly is Matthew Brokerage. He is the reason we are where we are today. He is the hardest working person I've ever met in my entire life. But beyond that, there is no problem he won't figure out how to solve. It's truly the yin to my yang, because there are a lot of things that I suck at. There are a lot of things that I'm terrible at. And he just finds a way to fill those holes. If you're thinking about starting a business, the first thing you need to do is understand what you're not good at, right? Understand that you as an individual, there are things that you are just not good at. It doesn't matter whether it's you, Jory, or anyone in this crowd, or me, or whoever. There are things that we all just are inherently not good at. And if you want to build a company, you need to have people who can fill in the holes where you can't. Right.
Yes,
so
sir.
I knew for me, there are certain things I'm good at. I'm good at motivating people. I'm good at selling. That's about it. Beyond that, I'm incredibly disorganized. I'm inconsistent. I don't show up all the time when I need to. And Brokerage is the opposite. He said, okay, Brokerage can actually do all the things I can do, but more importantly, he can do the things I can't. And he has done it phenomenally well. And he's continued to build out our team and add people to it who can fill in the holes where he can't. Right.
Yeah, you're right, man. You do got to find people that are good at doing the things that you're not so good at. You know, that is quintessentially how you build something that is going to, go to the next level. So thank you for sharing that. But there's another thing that I really want to ask you about. It's the fact that, you are the CEO for a non-figure business, and, you're relatively young. You have, a life that you like to live. Like, what are you doing to be able to, kind of maintain those duties and work on a high level? Like, because, what are you doing, brother? Like, you got to be doing something different than most people.
Sure. So, I think the first thing I can say here that maybe makes sense is you got to be able to understand your balance and like what works and what doesn't. So I kind of look at the world, I look at my life from the perspective of when I wake up in the morning, what am I doing? And is it helping or hurting? Like, I don't know why, but I saw this show called The Good Place on maybe NBC or maybe I watched it on Netflix. I don't know. But anyways, it's about, it's Kristen Bell is I think her name, the main character. It's a comedy show, but the point is these people are like stuck in kind of purgatory and like they want to get to heaven versus hell, and this is not religious by any means, but my point is what they say on the show is like you do these things in your life and they're either helpful or they're hurting. So you either get positive points or negative points. Now, I kind of look at that and apply it to my life to say, when I wake up in the morning, am I doing something that's helping me or hurting me? Like physically, mentally, emotionally. And for a long time, I was not in a good spot, and I was not doing things that were helping me. I was making bad decisions, and these were times where I was not doing as well professionally. What I've found is our business has grown, and I've kind of, matured a little bit, is the more I focus on doing things that are benefiting me, the better. So for me, it starts first thing in the morning. I typically go for a run around 5:30 in the morning. It used to just be a walk. I got really heavy at the beginning of the pandemic. I was not doing well mentally. Was feeling depressed, was struggling with the idea of running a business during all the chaos that was going on.
Right.
I'm 6'3", so I'm a tall guy, but my peak weight was 260 pounds. So in November of 2020, so after 8 months of this pandemic, I weighed 260 pounds. I was way out of shape. I was not happy. I was miserable. And it just was enough, frankly. I'd been in shape in the past, and I actually sent a text to my sister and just said, listen, there's a picture of me from 2015. It was me and her at an event. And I was like, I just looked so much better. I was so much happier. I need to get back to that. And I committed to just every morning I wake up and I go for a walk. And it was simple at first. Just go for a walk for an hour. I listen to music. And for me, that's how I think well is I just get really focused. I listen to music. I kind of actually lose myself a little bit in music. But it helps me think about our business, think about the future, think about things we're not doing well, things we need to do better, wherever it may be. But day after day, I just kept doing more and more. I started tracking my steps. As someone who's very competitive, you got to figure out what's your edge. For me, my edge is I'm super competitive. So if I can create an environment where I can create a competitive situation for myself, that's a win. So every month I was tracking my steps every day, and I just kept doing more and more. And now a year later, I've lost 45 pounds. and all of that. It started walking, now it's running, but it's tracking my steps every day, and it's just putting myself in a position to make smarter decisions and do things that are benefiting me versus hurting me. I started doing meditation, simple as like literally just downloading the Headspace app and listening for 5 minutes at a time. And I felt like I was lost half the time. I felt like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know what was going on. But you do it enough times, you start to develop a rapport. You start to understand how to do it the right way, and it feels better. And the better I feel, the better I can apply myself at work. So those are, I guess, tips. I don't know if those are even tips, but that's just kind of my stick.
All right, man. Hey, first off, thank you for, your vulnerability, to be able to just share that. And I appreciate it because, you don't know how many people might be having that exact same feeling or being in that exact place where they're like, hey, should I change what I got going on? And it sounds like you've just been in a spot where, the change was the pain to change was not as much as the pain to stay where you were. So thank you for sharing that, brother. And yeah, I've been there too. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the only person who can ever get you out of a bad situation is you, whether it's, and this is for anybody. It's as simple as that. If you're unhappy, you're the only person who can change that. And it starts with you just believing you can and then doing something about it. And it's small at first. It doesn't happen overnight. It's taking little by little, step by step, and figuring out how you can do a little bit more each day to improve your situation. But literally, perspective is everything. It is literally everything in this world. There's a guy named, I think his name was Viktor Frankl, and I'm going to botch this story a little bit. But he was maybe he was a psychologist or something. There's a book about him, or he wrote a book. But this is during the Holocaust, and this is when the Nazis were really trying to break down the Jews and put them in a really terrible position. And I mean, really, they're murdering them, obviously. But one of the things that Viktor Frankl realized as he was doing the study is that, like, you can take a lot away from someone, but you can't take their attitude away. And one of the things that he realized some of these Jewish people had figured out was you could torture someone, but they could sit there and keep smiling at you, and there's nothing you could do to break their spirit if they didn't let you.
That's their right.
And what that really means is perspective is everything. At the end of the day, it is entirely up to you to look at your world and decide if it's a positive or a negative. And the people in your life who don't do things well, or the people in your life who are struggling, are people who look at the world and say, this is happening to me. Something is happening to me, not what can I do about this? It's, well, this happened to me. I got this illness. I got this going on. I got hit by this car. That shit's going to happen in the world. What are you going to do about it? Right? It's entirely up to you to view the situation how you want to view it, and then fucking act. I'm sorry for my language, but then act on it. I stopped talking because I'm starting to swear.
You got passionate, man. And look, the funny thing is, I've been reading the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and guess what? That story was covered in that book. So yeah,
is it really?
It is, brother. It is.
I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I love it. Actually, I mean, as just a person that's looking to start a family soon, it teaches how to, gives you the verbiage on how to instill values into people. So it's pretty dope. I can't even lie. I'm very happy to be reading it now. Now that I'm a business owner, so that I'm displaying this type of stuff and building it into the culture of my company. So yeah, man. Thank you for sharing that. And look, I'm going to get back to, highlighting MoLo, just because, there's a lot that you guys have been able to do. And I want people to be able to understand and see you guys as a resource, a place to get freight. So when were you guys founded?
July 5th, 2017. We moved our first load the day after the 4th of July.
Oh, boom, boom, boom. And right now, I know it's a couple people that have that co-founder title, but how many people is it? So
we had a funky situation. I couldn't really be there at the beginning. At the beginning, it was a gentleman, Matt Bogerich, who's really my partner, and then 2 other guys, Will Jenkins and Stefan Mathis, both of whom I had worked with previously at Coyote. They both left looking for greener pastures at other companies and didn't really find them, which is when I reached out to them and said, hey, would you guys be interested in doing something different? I introduced them to Bogerich, and the 3 of them got the business up and running. Literally 3 guys. I think they booked the first load from Matt Bogerich's apartment. And they were in the apartment for a few weeks before we got a little office, 2,000 square feet above a bar in Chicago and River North. And I mean, this was dinky as all hell. I mean, this place was, I think there were a couple times where it smelled like gas, like there was a leak or something. They could go, and they were booking loads from the Einsteins or the Starbucks across the street. I mean, we've dealt with a lot of adversity as we've been building this thing, but one of the things I've always respected about the people we have is there's just a tremendous amount of resiliency, and they just don't know what quit looks like. I mean, they just know is not a word in their vocabulary. If there's a problem we got to solve, these people show up and solve it, and they won't quit until they do.
Gotcha. So now that you guys are up and running, how many employees do you have right now?
I think today we have 540 employees.
Wow. Okay, 540 employees, and I think that. I think that's a testament probably to Will. I mean, isn't he the guy that, trains your new hires and all that type of stuff?
Not anymore. Now Will helps lead our sales department. Will's a jack of all trades. He's done everything I've ever asked him to do, which is one of the things I love about him. One of the terms we've always used with him is nimble. Our business, we've always had to be nimble. And Will's someone who has said, listen, whatever job you need me to do, I'll do it. And for a while it was training. For a bit, it was carrier-related type stuff. And most recently, we needed help in sales. And he's done a phenomenal job in building out the sales department with a few other gentlemen.
Do you have a number for how many new employees you think you're bringing on over, each month, like over the last quarter maybe?
I wouldn't use over the last quarter as a good reference point, but I would say, because we don't hire a ton in Q4. When you're building a business the way we do,
true.
I'm not super interested in people with experience. I mean, it's good to get people with experience, but I think anybody can be good at this job. I just think they need the right training, and they have to have a good head on their shoulders and a good work ethic, right? So we want to hire a lot of people right out of college or wherever they're coming from. So we'll probably hire 300 to 350 people this year, the bulk of which will be between April and September. And then we'll, in the Q1 and Q4, we'll hire people as well, just not as many as the other quarters.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, to be honest. And, that's funny. I was going to ask you about that. Do you feel it's more valuable to have somebody that has that industry experience or maybe even transferable skills? And, to you, is probably the transferable skills.
Well, it's a tough question to answer generally because for a long time we needed people with experience. With the rate at which we were growing, I needed people who I could just say, hey, here's a new account. I need you to take care of it. And you can't do that with someone who just got into the industry a day ago and they still laugh when you say the word reefer. Like that doesn't right. You get people that's the standard. Okay. Hire a guy out of college and, you're training them on the lingo, right? And it takes a few weeks to get them to feel comfortable. Whereas for us, the first few years, we did hire a ton of people with experience. What I've learned hiring people with experience is they come with bad habits. They come with habits they learn from other brokerages. And for us, we don't want to be like any other brokerages. I don't want to be like I would never start a company if I was just trying to be like everybody else. And that's just something that pisses me, frankly, upsets me is how similar a lot of these brokerages seem. Everybody has learned to talk these days. Everybody knows what to say to make a shipper happy, but they don't actually execute. They don't deliver. They don't get the job done the way that a lot of our people do. And that's something that's always irked me. But it's been a challenge of hiring people with experiences. They come with some bad habits. As long as they come with an open mind and the idea that they can get better if they do it our way and they can make more money and they can see more growth and potential in their career, then I'll take them and we'll give them every opportunity. I think trust starts on the business side. Trust starts with us saying, hey, we'll give you a shot. We'll trust first and just don't take advantage of us, right? Do it the way we ask of you. And I promise you good things will come.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes, I completely agree, brother. Yeah. And do you, even with having some need to hire folks with experience, did you ever feel as though non-competes, gave you any type of hiccups in your hiring processes?
No, I fucking hate non-competes. I shouldn't be swearing again, but I am very anti non-compete. And I say that for a couple of reasons. I understand the need for non-competes if you've got owners in a business, right? If someone has a reasonable equity share in the business and stands to, have access to a lot of information and also stands to make a lot of money long-term in the business, I understand a non-compete. It's got to be reasonable, though. My general perspective is for a 22-year-old, 23-year-old person to get hired, or any age really, someone at an entry level, there's zero reason someone should be signing a non-compete. Absolutely zero. There is not a trade secret in the industry that anybody can't get from any one of the industry resources that exist today. I think that what people don't realize is technology has, in the last 5 years, really leveled the playing field in terms of access to information. So 20 years ago, maybe a large broker had more information about shippers than everybody else. But today there are so many tools available to you, from a Zoom Info to any one of the CRM tools that exist, that we can all figure out who the decision maker is at Coca-Cola, at Pepsi, at Anheuser-Busch, whatever. Like, there's just not that much that a business needs to be protecting itself against an entry-level employee by making them sign a non-compete that doesn't allow them to go work somewhere better. You shouldn't treat your center of employment like a fucking prison, right? You should treat it like a competitive environment where if I'm not taking good enough care of my people, somebody else is going to take better care of them, and they have the right to choose where they want to work. My job is to put my people in a position to win, to put them in a position where they're going to be successful and can make as much money as they want to make if they put in the effort. And if they find that they can do better somewhere else, then they should be able to go do that. If I can't create the best environment for them, then by all means, they should be allowed to go work somewhere else. But what these companies do is they say, hey, you know what? I'm a big company. You don't have a job. You got to come work for me and sign this paperwork. I'm not going to tell you what it really means. I'm not going to explain it to you. Just sign it. This is how you get your paycheck in 2 weeks. And they take advantage of people. And it just that irks me. And it's just not something I'm super comfortable with. I really don't like non-competes, if you can't tell.
I don't think that you're alone in that either. Especially as the owner and someone who is looking to staff more people to, deal with the additional clients and customers that you're getting. And then people are having that as, the handcuffs on some employees that they don't even really treat well. So I agree. And like I said, I don't think you're alone in that. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Think about it from that perspective. Think about it from like a marriage, right? Let's say I meet a woman and you treat it like a business where it's like, okay, you're going to have a non-compete. So what you're saying is, I just met you. I barely know you. I'm willing to go on a date with you, which is kind of like taking a job, right? You don't know everything you're going to get out of a job over the next 5 years from the first time you do an interview. So like, you go on a date with a girl or a guy or whatever, and then you sign a non-compete that says, okay, moving forward, I cannot for a year after I'm done dating you, date anybody else. That's the same thing as a non-compete in business. You would never sign. You would never agree to that. So what it becomes unfair is a company presents itself as one thing when you interview with them, and you interview 2-3 times, and then you sign something. But then you actually start working there, and it could be something completely different. You can find out that they're just completely not who they said they were. The company doesn't do the things they said they do, but you've already signed, and you're stuck. Now you can't. Now, if it's a dating stream, now you can't go date anybody else for a year. Like that to me is just crazy. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Man, imagine that situation with Tinder out here. Oh man,
right? Exactly.
Oh yeah. Look, so you mentioned something that I felt like was very, very important. You said that in this day and age, technology has leveled the playing field. My question to you is, which technology that you guys have implemented, recently has given you the most efficiency, the most uptick in efficiency?
That's a good question. And here's where you'll realize that I answer honestly, because I don't think that tech is something that I can say is a true differentiator for us today. It's not something we're still too young. We have a partnership with a company called Mastery, who's building our technology. We're not tech builders as individuals, and by individuals I mean like the current individuals at MoLo. I hardly know how to turn my computer on, so it's not my background. And rather than you have two options, right? You can build it or you can buy it. And we've done a couple. Let me explain our situation. So our first thought was, let's buy it. Essentially, let's get it from a partner who's good at building technology and work with them. What ended up happening, our company was acquired 3 months ago by ArcBest, who's a publicly traded $3.5 billion, 100-year-old transportation company. Now, what they historically focus on is different than what we historically focus on, which makes a really complementary match. But one of the things I really liked about them is they have 500 people who work on in what's called AB Tech, which is their tech team. And they're building customized solutions for customers. What I think is going to happen over the coming years, you have to understand where you are in the kind of ecosphere of the competitive landscape, I guess is the better place to put it. 5 years ago, or when we started the company, we just wanted to compete. We just wanted to get customers and grow our business and be in the conversation. And that's what we did, which is why tech didn't really matter, because you can grind and hustle your way there, right? And you can leverage the tools available to you through the DAT and other systems like that, other CRMs, whatever, to be successful. Now, though, we're shifting a little bit. I don't want to be just in the conversation. We don't want to be in the conversation. We want to be at the top of the conversation. We want to be the gold standard for what companies think about when they think of transportation. And to do that, we have to be able to compete at the highest level with companies that spend hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions on technology every single year. And my point in saying this is that that's a big reason why we did this deal with ArcBest, is because now I'm not just wanting to move freight. I want to really solve supply chain problems for these customers end to end, right? From farm to table, almost, so to speak, in terms of how can we look at a customer's entire ecosystem, their entire supply chain, and provide solutions rather than just moving their loads from Chicago to Atlanta. And let me be as honest as possible when I say I don't know how to do that today. But what I do know is I feel like we've partnered with the right people and the right team to put all of ourselves, MoLo and ArcBest combined, in a position to compete at the highest level and be in the conversation with shippers that really need bigger problems solved than just the how do I move a load from Chicago to Dallas, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir. It makes perfect sense. And thank you for sharing. So you actually mentioned something that I'm happy that you talked about, the acquisition by ArcBest of your organization. And you've seen it a couple times now, where you're in the middle of a freight brokerage and they are purchased by, some other organization. For the people who are in the audience right now who may be building a freight brokerage or any type of company, what are the type of things that you need to, consider when building that company to make it more attractive for somebody to buy it out?
That is not the question I was expecting. Okay. So what are the things that you need to do to make a company interesting for a potential acquirer? Okay. That is a good question. Let me think about the answer. I'm trying, because here's the thing, to be perfectly honest, we didn't build the company with the intent of trying to make it attractive to be bought. I wasn't even trying to sell it when we sold it, to be honest. I wanted to raise money, and we were, the intent was actually to partner with a private equity company so we could keep building it the way we were. Ultimately, what we saw, though, was what we could do with ArcBest was greater than what we could do with a private equity company, because all a private equity company could do was give us a bunch of money to keep building. And I didn't want to build things that I didn't know how to build. We're really, really good at moving truckload freight. We don't know anything about LTL. We don't know, and I say we. Most of my people don't. I speak way too colloquially sometimes, and I apologize. But what I mean to say is, we are not experts in moving anything other than truckload. We don't have a ton of experience moving LTL. We don't have a ton of experience moving expedite. We didn't have a ton of money behind us, and we didn't have any inherently built technology that was proprietary to us. Now, if I went and raised a bunch of capital from a private equity firm, say $100, $200 million, I could then go build all of those things. I could hire someone to build an LTL department for me. I could hire someone to build an expedite division for me. I could hire someone to build out all this fancy technology for me. Or what was in front of me, was in front of us, was ArcBest. And what ArcBest said to us was, hey, we've got 30,000 existing customers, most of which don't use us a lot for truckload, which is what you guys are experts at. We've got our own tech division that we can build out whatever you need. We've got our own expedite. We've got our own LTL. We want you to focus on truckload. And sometimes it fits like a glove, and that's what it's supposed to do in this scenario. Now, time will tell if it does. That's kind of the leap of faith you have to take in a situation like this, which can be scary as all hell, and I promise you it is. but you got to trust your gut, and you got to trust that at the end of the day, if your people continue to show up and execute the way they have for the last 4.5 years, then in the end, it'll all be okay. In the end, what I've realized is everybody buys into our model because our model works. We do a great job supporting our customers. And at the end of the day, I trust that ArcBest will see the way we support our customers, and they'll support it and want to give us more business and want to get us in front of more of their customers. Now, to answer your question that I skirted around because I didn't have a good answer, how do you make a business interesting for someone to acquire? I wouldn't think about it from the perspective of how do you make it interesting for someone to acquire? How do you make a business interesting for your potential customer base? And maybe this only applies to a service type business like ours, but all I ever think about is how do I make my customers happy? All I ever care about is what do my customers want from me? People in our industry talk about all this new exciting innovation happening, the billions being invested in innovation, and yet for some reason, the simplest problem is still not solved, which is a shipper knowing that if they give a load to a broker, that it's actually going to get executed and delivered on when it's supposed to. Shippers still don't trust brokers. That is still the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems in our industry. There's still a negative connotation that exists when you think of the term freight broker. That is true today. It was true when I started the industry in 2006. It was true 5 years ago when I left to start this business. And so for me, if you want to build any business, the simplest advice I can give you is know exactly who your customers are and know exactly how to make them happy, and then spend all of your time and energy trying to figure out how to make them happy, because that's how you grow a business. And you know, I think that specific advice maybe it sounds so simple that it's stupid, and maybe it is stupid advice and I shouldn't be saying it, but that's my advice. And at the end of the day, I just think in our business, especially where you're providing a service, the only thing that matters is the end customer and if they're happy with the service being provided. And I don't think companies focus enough on that in our industry. And I'm happy they don't, because I don't think we'd be as successful as we are if they did.
You're filling the gaps, brother. You're filling the gaps. And I think that you just said something that was very, very relatable. I was working for a pretty large brand at one point, and they had a slogan that stuck with me. It still sticks with me. It's growth through customer service. It's as simple as that, but that's exactly how you're going to grow, by treating your existing customers so well that they don't need to go anywhere else, and that they're actually going to do the purest form of marketing for you, which is word of mouth to all of their buddies who are also business and company owners. So, no, I think you said something great right there. So I appreciate you sharing. And, you know, you also said something earlier. I didn't know that you guys didn't specialize in box trucks and LTL freight, because my experience with MoLo, you know, as the owner of Atlanta Dispatch LLC, is I move box truck freight with you guys. And at one point I was moving so much mail freight, like I was moving mail freight at least 3 to 4 times a week. And it was pretty smooth, because to find box truck freight sometimes can be a little bit challenging if you don't have the right relationships. And, you know, even me saying that, I just want to take a second to say this: carriers that are listening or that will be listening, make sure you know what your insurance covers when you're carrying it, because a lot of people are moving mail and all this other stuff and think that it's covered under general freight, but you know that's not the case. So just make sure you know that you're covered when you're picking up this stuff. But yeah, I digress from that. But I did just get a few lanes from you guys that I pray that we can do together. And they're all box truck freight. So, you know, you got a rock star over there with Peter K. I hope
Pete Contopoulos. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. I don't think he knew that I was really chatting with you. I was like, hey, tell Andrew I said what's up. I said this probably about 6 months ago. I think he just joked it off, but
no, I think he actually did send me a message. I actually remember that now.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that guy. And you know, so do you guys do a lot of power only freight too?
We do some. It's not. You know, it's truckload, and then everything else is really kind of how our business has historically been. 90+% is truckload. We do power only. We do box truck. We do LTL. It's not a core competency. But what I've ultimately found is freight is freight. It's just a matter of understanding your customer expectations and then providing a phenomenal service to execute on it. So just because we haven't done it doesn't mean I'm scared to do it. And, one of the things I'm excited about is getting some of our existing people who have done a phenomenal job in truckload, getting them in front of some of the ArcBest opportunities that exist, whether it's LTL, box truck, expedite, whatever it may be. Because what I've learned is these people are really, really good at making customers happy, regardless of what it is that they're doing, right? It's just understanding your customer's expectations and then saying, I can agree to those, and then performing on those. I don't think that it's our job as a broker to make the rules. I think it's the shipper's job to make the rules. It's our job to agree to the rules and then play within the rules set for us. And I think that some people don't understand that, and that's why some brokers perform better than others.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And look, for the people who are listening in who have fleets of their own, do you have dedicated opportunities? And if so, who should they reach out to? And you don't really have to drop a name, but, you guys do have a lot of opportunities. And, the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse does have a lot of small to mid-size carriers, people with between one truck and, 200 trucks, really. So for those people who might be listening in, how do they actually get access to some of the freight that you guys are moving? This is
it's going in and out. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's a very important question, Andrew.
I feel bad. The best. Is the question still what's the best way to contact us for dedicated opportunities and whatnot?
Yeah, I wanted to change it. Go ahead,
change it because I missed half of it.
I wanted to change it from who is the person that we reach out to how do we get our hands on some of this dedicated freight for the folks who have fleets.
I would expect we're going to see a lot more dedicated here soon with our ArcBest deal because of some of the opportunities they have within their business. For us, it's just understanding what it is that a carrier is looking for, having that kind of strategic conversation that's beyond moving from A to B. I would start with, just because I don't know the email off the top of my head, I would start with carrierinfo@shipmolo.com because I know my whole carrier management team looks at that. That's carrier, carrierinfo@shipmolo.com. You also, any one of you, listen, you guys can have my contact info. My email is andrew.silver@shipmolo.com. My cell phone number is 847-707-7051. I'm available whenever. You can text me, call me. I'll at least connect you with the right person. I don't have the answers, but I know how to facilitate a conversation. And I love talking to carriers. In fact, I wouldn't be in this business if I didn't love working with trucking companies. That's kind of what got me into this from day one. So.
Oh, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. Thank you so much, man. As you can see, folks, this guy is not hiding behind a big tower. So I just want to say thank you. But this is what you are doing. For the folks who don't know, can you play this game with me real quick? It's basically
what game are we playing?
All right. It's just you choose. You just say which one you prefer. Okay. I'm going to give you two options, and you just say which one you prefer. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. Cubs or White Sox?
Cubs.
Derrick Rose or Alonzo Ball?
Derrick Rose.
Chicago deep dish pizza or New York thin crust?
Chicago thin crust.
Chicago thin crust. Okay. And last but not least, an office that is comprised of cubicles or one that has a regulation basketball court.
I don't know what the other one is, but I'm out on the cubicle. And I'll take the basketball court.
All right. It sounds as though, look, how did you go about getting an office that has a basketball court in it?
Oh my God, Troy! I don't know. We'll see if this was the right move. There's a lot of time will tell. Here's the thing: we've been in this office we're in now we moved in August of 18, right? So that's a little over 3 years, and our lease isn't ending, but it's supposed to end. We're running out of time on it. It's not a set lease. It's a funky deal we got. It's a cheap deal in a really good spot in the city, but we're out of space. Well, it's hard to know your space with COVID. We don't require people to come into the office anymore. We've told our people they can work from wherever they want. Really just because they did a really, really phenomenal job in the onset of COVID. And for the last 2 years, they've continued to crush it. So I just feel it would almost be criminal for me to tell them, you have to come back to an office. It's like they've earned our trust. It would be it would break the trust for me to say, I need you to come back to the office. So with that said, though, I love being in the office. I like the environment, the vibe of being in an exciting brokerage. I was looking for the cheapest deal possible, and because COVID and whatnot, I thought nobody's trying to get a lot of space. In a brokerage, you could do you could put one person for every 100 square feet. Mm-hmm. So if you have 500 people, you need at least 50,000 square feet. The other challenge is for a fast-growing company, every year you're going to hire a couple hundred people. So for us, we'll hire 200-300 people every year. This year we'll probably hire 350 is what I said before. So if we go from 540 people to just about 900 people, how do I account for space that way? And then next year we'll have the 1,200, and then the year we'll have 1,500 if we do a good job. Because leases in buildings, you got to sign a 10-year lease. So it's hard to get the right space. Ultimately, what we decided was it's kind of like a field of dreams. If you build it, they will come concept. And I don't want to force people to come back. I want to give them the best environment possible. So we literally went and found what was the best office space we thought we could find in the city of Chicago. It's 167 North Green Street. It is in the center of Fulton Market, which is the most up-and-coming, young, kind of hip area where people like to go out and have a good time, a lot of great restaurants, a lot of things to do. And this building is brand spanking new, and it's truly phenomenal. It's expensive. It's definitely expensive, and you could call it a risk. But to me, I look at it as not an investment in real estate as much as I look at it as an investment in people.
Yes,
I think we have now an edge on all of our competitors because nobody can say they have an office like ours. And in our business, people drive your success. And every great person who wants to be in our industry, if they want to move to Chicago and work in freight, they're deciding between Coyote and C.H. Robinson and MoLo and Echo and Load Delivered and all these other companies. Why us? There are a number of reasons, but two of them that make sense are, one, we have the best remote work policy. Nobody else, I don't think, has said you can work remote forever if you want to, as long as you do your job. And on top of that, we also now have the best office space. So if I can attract the best people from day one, that puts me in the best position to outperform our competitors. Is kind of how I think about it. And our team, I think we've given our recruiters a really big leg up in the conversations they have with potential recruits. It's crazy. It maybe is crazy because COVID's scaring the crap out of me, and that it won't seem to go away. There's always another freaking Omicron, Delta, whatever that's coming up every 6 weeks. I get it. It's a serious thing, and I'm not arguing that. It's just, we got to build out this space, and we'll move in probably May or June of this year. And I hope that our people want to go there. If not, then, we spent a lot of money for an empty office. But I really think that it's going to create the type of environment that people will want to go to. And I think it just puts us in a position to be successful.
Yes, sir. I want to go. Look, man.
You're welcome. Come to Chicago. I'll take you out. We'll stop by and grab lunch or whatever, and I'll show you the office.
All right, brother. I'm there. Look, you can't take it back now. You've said it, so thank you.
I'm not taking it back. I'm here right now.
So, all right. Yeah, I appreciate that. But I wanted to highlight the fact that is something that is investing in your employees, the folks that get to see that type of space, and just, it makes me happy. I was more so on the side of you, playing rec basketball and, having a good friend who was just, an all-star and everything, you know what I mean? So I used to get my butt whooped almost continuously one-on-one basketball versus my best friend. And, but the whole point is that type of spaces, I would love that. I'm a basketball guy. I love it, so.
Yep. You and me both.
It worked for me, man. It worked for me. As a matter of fact, I know you're competitive. Have you ever challenged Matt to one-on-one basketball?
I challenge him all the time, and every single thing we can do. The one concern I have about this new office is Brokerage, as I walked him through it, because I kind of led the drive here, but I walk him through the basketball court, and he goes, "There's only one problem with this spot." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Well, I won't be working at MoLo in 5 years." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Guaranteed the Bulls sign me in a year after I spend enough time here." I'm like, man, you don't realize how washed up you are.
That is hilarious, man. But he says, "Hey, I got the work ethic, brother. It's proven. I can do this."
That is true.
Yeah, man. True. Oh no, that's awesome. And yeah, I bet he is good. I saw him, in those pictures. I was like, all right, he's pretty tall too. I wonder what basketball would be against, with him.
The MoLo team is a good basketball team. We got a lot of former players. We got guys who played in Greece. We got one of Vogrich's college roommates is 6'11". Vogrich, they used to call Vogrich the mop-topped assassin. The guy he can just make threes from anywhere. But I am better than him at most things, and I have no data to back that up. I'm just saying it. So it's not true.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Hey, look, this is a random question. This is a very random question, but I just feel as though I have to ask. Do you feel as though there have been any deals that were either closed or initiated just by way of you being on a golf course? You being on a golf course, do you think that you've been exposed to business deals? Because that's all I hear. Let
me put it this way for you. When you want to close a deal with a customer, you want as much of their undivided attention as possible, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if you take a customer to dinner or a potential customer to dinner, you maybe get 2 hours of their undivided attention if it's a longer dinner, right? Mm-hmm. If you agree to a meeting in their office, they're usually giving you a half hour or an hour at most. Mm-hmm. If you can get them on a golf course, they've got no choice, but they got to give you 4 hours of undivided attention. So the math adds up that, yes, you can get business on a golf course. And I'm a big fan of it. I've got a lot of customers who like golfing, and I like golfing. It's a way to I suck at it, but my answer to your question is yes. You can get business on a golf course undoubtedly, and I think about it purely from a time perspective of how much undivided attention you can get from someone, and that's what you're looking for if you want to close business.
All right, well that's good to hear. Excuse me, I did just get my starter set of clubs, and anytime you want to tee off at Grove 23. You just let me know, brother. We'll play with Michael Jordan himself, okay?
That sounds great. I'm in.
All right. And look, so with this day and age, it was announced today, actually, that at $3.83 per mile, inclusive of the fuel surcharge, we are at the highest average national dry van rate per mile. So that means ever since they've been tracking it on Sonar, which is a great tool, we partner with FreightWaves weekly to leverage that data. But this is the highest it's ever been for the national average per mile rate for dry vans. And I want to ask you, do you feel as though with hearing that type of figure that win-win opportunities exist in this industry?
Absolutely. This is as good a time as ever for a truck driver to be in this industry. I hope every driver is making the most money they can. I hope they're doing so honestly. I mean, for me, it's just about clear, upfront communication and setting expectations the right way. If you tell me you're going to charge me $5 a mile, and I understand what I'm getting from that, and we agree to it, then boom, let's go. Let's make it work. I don't care. I want drivers to make as much money as possible. I think that they make our economy move, and without them, we couldn't do anything. And by anything, I mean literally anything. So it just makes me happy to hear because it's been a 2.5 year bull run for truckers, and they've deserved it because they've had some down times. There were years where it was not very profitable to be a truck driver. And as someone who's spent enough time with them, and you're buying pizzas for them as they're waiting to get loaded, whatever, it's just like, you want to help however you can. It helps when the industry does the work for you and makes it easier for the driver to make more money because they've got the hardest job. All I know is, for me, you think about something like detention, I get pissed if my flight's delayed for 20 minutes, right?
Yes, sir.
And these guys, these folks, men, women, whoever, they deal with detention on a daily basis, and it's not 20 minutes. In some cases, it's 10 hours. If you told me I had to sit in a truck for 10 hours and, $400 at most was what I was going to get out of it, in some cases it's even less depending on what broker you're working with, to me, that's just bullshit. It's just not something that I stand for or agree with. So the fact that drivers are making more money than ever, I'm all for it. That's a win-win for everybody. Nobody should be upset about that.
Yes, sir. I agree. And I do feel the love that you have for carriers, for drivers. You mentioned it, that was kind of like one of your earliest understandings of this industry is the carrier and how you have to, really respect and appreciate them, because without a carrier, freight's not getting moved. So
absolutely.
But with that, I wanted to segue over to something that, I wanted to highlight about MoLo. And it was the fact that you guys were able to make some pretty sizable donations to the St. Christopher's Trucker Development and Relief Fund. Being able to give high five figures, to something, any type of charity, is amazing. But why did you guys choose that one in particular, that charity in particular?
It's because it's one of the few charities that the money is going directly to the impacted driver. So we did this in, I want to say it was May of 2020. So this was a couple months into COVID. We still didn't even really understand what COVID was at that point. I remember thinking it was going to be 2 weeks long. God, how crazy were we for thinking that? But my point is, you get worried sometimes about giving money to charity, but where the dollars really go. And Sharon, who runs that charity, I got to know her a little bit, and she's just an awesome lady. And I spent time talking to her directly, and she made it explicitly clear that this money goes into the pockets of drivers who have had the misfortune of illness or injury that prevent them from doing the job that is a really hard job to do to begin with. So I don't feel like there are enough organizations like St. Christopher's out there that's focused specifically on the truck driver. And for us, our business doesn't exist without the driver. As you said, I don't have money to donate without the driver. So as much as there are a million good causes you could be donating to me, none of them would make as much sense as the drivers that really put the money in our pockets to begin with.
Yes, sir. 100%. As a dispatcher, I know that wholeheartedly. Without a driver, I don't have a business model. I don't have the business if I don't have a carrier that wants me to select loads for them. And,
exactly.
So with anybody that I bring onto my organization, because I'm currently hiring, I want to hire about 6 dispatchers. I just got to let them know that that's number one, is the driver, the carrier, and what we're doing for them is number one. And everything else takes a back seat to it.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And look, we're wrapping up here just because I've asked you a billion questions. But I also wanted to highlight the fact that you and your partner, Matt, you guys were able to accomplish some amazing things. Being able to be a finalist for the Ernst and Young Entrepreneurs of the Year awards, that's a huge feat, so I just want to say congratulations, because they did recognize all of your drive, all of your growth, everything that you guys were instilling into this industry. So I just want to say congratulations. And what was that like?
It was eye-opening. I guess the easiest way to put it was, and frankly, I'm competitive, but we went to Palm Springs for the event where they have all the finalists kind of against each other, and they pick the grand winners. And it just, if anything, just made us realize that we're not making a big enough impact on the world. You see some of the people who are also finalists, I'm like, man, we're moving trucks, but like some of these people are doing some world-changing things. The woman who won, she started her company, spent 10 years not taking a salary, and ultimately created an organization that they have found a way to essentially alter people's chromosomes, basically find a way to solve some illnesses that people like you and I just would have no idea how to even talk about. You can hear me struggling to talk through it. But just some people are doing some phenomenal things out there. Entrepreneurship is a cool thing from the get-go. Just the willingness to put yourself out there to pursue a dream, whatever it may be, whether it's you starting a dispatching service, a brokerage, or you want to solve some of the world's hardest problems. None of that happens if you don't have the willingness to just put yourself out there and try. And that's been the coolest thing in being a part of that EY program, is meeting other people who put themselves out there. And the one thing I can say to anybody who's even considering being an entrepreneur, considering starting a business, if you ever have the idea, if it ever creeps into your mind, I highly recommend you pursue it, because you'll regret forever if you don't. And obviously circumstances are important, and you have to, if you got a family to support, it's different, right? I was young and single when I did this, but you got to know the resources available to you and all that. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you're somebody who has that itch, sometimes you got to scratch it. And if you don't scratch it, you're going to be kicking yourself until you do. And that's just the entrepreneurial mindset, I think. So, if you're going to put yourself out there, do it, go all in, give it everything you have, find a way to stay motivated, find the doubters and turn them into motivation for yourself. Give yourself a chip on your shoulder and work harder than you've ever had to work for anything in your life to make it happen. Because if you do, good things will come out of that.
I concur 100%. I'd rather fail than regret. I'd rather try and not succeed than to be like, man, what if? What if I would have just done that? And I've been on that train really for like maybe the last year and a half of, you're kind of scared, Jory. You're fearful, but why don't you just keep going? Just keep going, keep pushing, see what's, it's going to just see what happens. The fact is you might be expending energy that you don't know if it's going to work out the way you want to, but you just got to keep on pushing. So, I agree, man. I'd rather try it than just not, because at the end of the day, you might get exactly what you're looking for. So, how would you know if you don't try?
Yeah, and what you might think is failure might just be an opportunity to learn from a mistake or learn from an opportunity, whatever it is. Just I don't know. I'm not a big guy in regret. If I see something I want, you got to go fucking get it. I mean, nobody else is going to do it for you. So it's just, don't miss out on things that you think could be worth it. It's just not. You only get one life.
You only get one life. You only get one life, people. So with that, I know that it's getting late, brother. I don't want to hold you forever.
We're turning into philosophers over here, so I don't know.
We are, man.
I was a freight broker 10 minutes ago.
Exactly. Like my last question is, all right, first off, would you be open to accepting any questions if folks had them from the audience? I know it's like a little late.
Yeah, I got another 10, 15 minutes. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to sit here and take them if people have them.
Okay, cool. Well,
but that was a trick. You said my last question, and then your last question was, will you take more questions?
Yeah, right. You know what? That recently got me. Look, I'll tell you this story offline, but I was playing this game at the family, and oh my Jesus, they just laughed at me so hard. I did exactly just that. I got one word that I was able to say to give them a clue on a particular, it's like charades or taboo, but a different version. And instead of giving the one word, I said, and they said, that's your word, brother. That's your word. And it was done. And so they all laughed at me. But anyways, my last question for you is this. All right. With me being a dispatcher, I've gone through 1 million RMIS packets to set up a carrier with a brokerage. And at the end of that RMIS package, there was this one little thing that was tied into it that you don't even know if you're supposed to do it. Is it required? It's that Project 44 thing. And, I just recently saw that, they got a nice little valuation at over, $2 billion.
2.4 billion for them, huh?
2.4. So shout out to Jet and the family over there. But it just made me think about just visibility of freight. And, what is the customer's expectation regarding the visibility of their freight? How do you feel? What do they make you feel?
So will you say the last part again? You just cut a little bit in and out. What about the visibility of the freight?
What's the customer's expectation? Like what's their expectation about how visible they want to be able to see their freight once it's in your possession?
Oh, I hate answering this question.
Oh man, last question.
It's not a very PC answer. Here's my honest opinion. I think most customers don't do anything with that information. I think most shippers are not nimble enough to take the information presented to them with the visibility and actually do anything with it. I think that they need something different than what they've had, right? Think about the last 10 years of what they've had available to them. And really, it was nothing. It was just trusting what a broker said and saying, okay, this is where the truck is. Now, all of a sudden, you got P44 and 4Kites, all these companies offering this visibility. And I believe it can be a good thing. I believe it can be something they do something with. However, what I've seen is they don't. What I've seen is they're not even checking where the truck is if it's not there on time. And they certainly are not nimble enough. There's a reason that most of these shippers, you've got drivers waiting for 8 hours. Even if they knew he was going to be there every hour on the hour for the last 62 hours that he was coming, he's still going to sit there for 8 hours. So I don't understand how having the visibility allows them to be more – well, it certainly allows them. But it's just you get these big companies, especially larger shippers, and you see this with publicly traded companies. You see it all across the board no matter what they do. It's really hard to be nimble. It's really hard to flex on the spot and make adjustments based on in-the-moment information. So my answer is I don't think it's that. I love what Jeff is doing at P44, and one of the things I really like is how transparent and authentic he is with his messages. You see it publicly on his LinkedIn, and he's ready to be a publicly traded company, and I like the way he's setting his business up to do that. And I think there's a ton of value to what he's doing. I don't know that I've seen shippers do enough with that information to make it worthwhile yet. We do it. We partake. We provide the information as needed. It is a necessary evil. Again, remember what I said before. It's not my job to make the rules. It's my customer's job to make the rules. It's my job to agree to the rules.
Hey, brother.
My job to tell them what to do. It's my job to advise them, certainly. Am I cutting out?
Just a little bit, but you're back now. You're back.
Brutal. But yeah, you gotta get my point. That's how I think about it.
I respect it. Yeah, definitely. All right. Yeah. So, that is something to think about. It is very early to say, but I do agree with you as far as like whether or not somebody's nimble enough to use that information and, make some huge changes at this point. I think
exactly.
I personally think they want it just because it's just somebody else wanted it. And
yes.
Now,
it's a way to appease somebody ahead of them. Their boss's boss, and whoever.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Well, to be honest, I'm very happy to say that was my very last question for the evening. I didn't see anybody raise their hands. If there is anyone that wanted to ask a question, please go ahead and do it now, because I'm going to turn off hand raising in T-minus 30 seconds.
60, that's a long time to wait.
Exactly. So I had to just go ahead and cut that down. But in the meantime, I did want to just say, Andrew, I'm very appreciative that you were able to share your time with us this evening. It's been very, very insightful speaking to you, learning more about MoLo Solution. I lied. I got another question. Do people actually call it Modern Solutions?
No, because that's not our name. That would be MoSo. If we were Modern Solutions, they call it. I don't think people really call us Modern Logistics. I don't even call us Modern Logistics. I don't think that's our name.
Right.
To me, it's MoLo. I don't know. MoLo stands for Modern Logistics, but Modern Logistics is so bland. MoLo is different. It's different. Nobody's ever heard anything like it. Somebody just tried to copy us and started Silo, which is simple logistics. But I want to be the first, not the second, so I'm not worried about it. I don't know. There's so much of the same in our industry, and I just try to be a little bit different in coming up with the name. I thought I used to say YOLO. I tried one time telling a customer YOLO for MoLo, and they were like, "Don't ever say that again." So I said, "Okay," and I have not used that in any of my pitches since.
That is hilarious, man. That is hilarious. Hey, you got to stay young with it. You gotta stay young. That's all I have to say.
Exactly.
But, with that being said, I did turn off hand raising. It's been an absolute privilege to speak with you, brother. The fact that you've been so candid and speaking straight from the heart, I'm going to remember that. So I just want to say, again, thank you. Is there anything you wanted to say to close out tonight's session?
No, I appreciate you having me on. I'm a fan of yours, and that's really the only reason I'm here. So, I hope we reached an audience, and I hope this was somewhat insightful. I do tend to ramble and just say a bunch of nonsense, but hopefully some of that was helpful for someone. And if not, then thanks everybody for listening to my garbage for an hour.
Well, look, man, those are kind words. I appreciate it. And again, you dropped some very, very high level gems. especially for people who have their own companies and they're looking to, focus on these customers and how to retain these customers and differentiate yourself from these other organizations. So, I took a lot away from this conversation. So thank you again. And to the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse members, thank you for the support always. This month, probably about a week ago, we hit a threshold, y'all. We crossed over 20,000 members, and
20,000 members.
20,000, brother. It's crazy.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that people are sticking with this, because at the end of the day, we're here just to bring value to those who are starting off, or maybe even you've been in the industry for a little while, but you hit a little stall or something like that, just to give you something to be able to rejuvenate yourself. But yeah, we're just here to provide value, and we appreciate the continued support. And next week, very excited to have another guest that is in the freight space. This is going to be one of the newer companies, and they are operating in the open deck space. So I'm excited to have that brother on stage next week. So if there's anything that you guys have that you want to say to me, or if there's anything I can help you out with, please just feel free to shoot me a message here on Clubhouse or on IG, or send me a email. All my stuff is in my bio. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you again, Andrew. You have a blessed night, brother.
Thanks, Troy. Have a great night.
Thank you. Peace.